I'm just wondering, if you have any thoughts about the issue of diversity and how that might be done in hiring in a way that's actually biblical.
Well, as you have probably surmised, that's a very loaded question.
You retired from Biola you left Biola in 2009. That was a little bit before we started seeing the whole influx of the diversity, equity, and inclusion discussion. Based on the research I've done, a lot of that stuff started creeping in about 8 to 10 years ago and really in full force about 4 to 5 years ago. A lot of it came through hopefully I get the acronym correct, the ECC, the Evangelical Christian College Coalition.
Oh, that's the CCCU, the CCCU, Christian colleges and universities. Yes.
Yes. A lot. And, I've detailed in other streams, going to their portal and seeing all of their tools and everything. But I'm wondering what your thoughts are about I just want to think about the issue of diversity. Okay. Because I think that there's a way of thinking about diversity that could be consistent with biblical ideas, but I'm not sure that that's always how it shows up in our processes and how we hire. There's a certain diversity agenda where things can go very wrong and have a direct impact into Christian higher ed. And I'm just wondering, if you have any thoughts about the issue of diversity and how that might be done in hiring in a way that's actually biblical.
Well, as you have probably surmised, that's a very loaded question.
Sorry.
And no, that's fine. I just want to go on, record as saying I'm not an expert in this. And you're right. The timing has come after I have left my senior positions. Right. But I will say this. First of all, I believe very clearly that diversity is something that God fully embraces, and it's very biblical. I think of the fact that God made us all who we are for his specific reason and purpose. We are created in the image of a holy God. And I think that it's also interesting that it is God who instituted language at the Tower of Babel. Like it or not, that's where it all began. And if you look all the way to the end of the biblical record, where it is included that one day all knees will bow and every tongue will confess, and it says in Revelation that everybody in every tongue and in every language. And so God instituted those things for his goodness and his grace. I think the serious issue is when we begin putting diversity-related concepts before the concept of godly character, biblical fidelity. Now, I want to add that there's a lot of pressure on institutions, especially Christian institutions, in having what is defined as a diverse faculty. And this pressure comes from their accrediting associations. There's a regional accrediting association across the entire United States. There are 7 of them. And one of them in this area is called WASC, the Western Association of Schools and Colleges, and they put tremendous pressure. They actually count numbers. How many faculty of color do you have? How many faculty who are male? How many faculty who are female? And when it comes time for accreditation, these institutions are under tremendous pressure. And so I feel that pressure. I understand that pressure. What we have to be careful of, I think, is placing the issue of diversity ahead of the issues that we had previously mentioned about biblical fidelity and loving your students, as well as being well-versed in the academic discipline that the people have engaged. So it's a challenging point. I am so glad that I am on this side of the equation right now. I continue to celebrate and support a number of Christian institutions, mostly in roles now of being on boards. And so I'm not immune to the pressure, but we have to stand for what is correct going into the future.
You raise a point that I really want to make sure that doesn't pass by the listener too quickly. And that is that there is pressure from these outside accreditation entities. And many of them are secular. And there are diversity goals and diversity requirements that schools need to be looking like they're making advances toward. And I think that that is a reality that Christian higher ed is facing and could explain, in part, not in whole, but could explain why DEI principles have been brought into so many Christian colleges, is because they want to keep their accreditation. They have to at least, at bare minimum, feign compliance with these things, and trying to figure out how to do it in a biblically faithful way. But depending on who your administrators are, and like other variables, where was that person educated? How much robustness have they done in terms of integrating their Christian worldview with their discipline, and what their personal opinions are about the authority of Scripture? Multiple variables. The people who are implementing those policies could, to a greater or lesser degree, bring in more and more of the secular ideology and secular versions of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Would you say that's fair?
Yes, I think that's totally fair. And the challenge, obviously, is to be responsible without being held hostage. And we want our students to be able to see faculty of color, to be able to interact with different qualities that they would bring into the environment. But we should not be held hostage to that.
Yeah.